Detailed account of Daniel's birth and early childhood based on the biblical narrative. Daniel's birth and early childhood are not explicitly mentioned in the book of Daniel. The book begins its account when Daniel and his friends are already in their teenage years and have been taken captive to Babylon. However, we can infer certain details about his background and early life based on contextual information. Birth and lineage. Daniel was likely born in Jerusalem during the reign of King Josiah, around 620 BC. He belonged to the tribe of Judah and came from a noble or prominent family, Daniel 1 verses 3-6. The book refers to him as Daniel, which means, God is my judge. Early education and training. Being from a noble family, it is reasonable to assume that Daniel received a proper education in Jerusalem, which would have included instruction in the law of Moses, Jewish traditions, and history. This early education later played a significant role in Daniel's wisdom and understanding. Babylonian captivity. In 605 BC, when Daniel was likely a teenager, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem and took captive several young men, including Daniel and his friends. They were selected to serve in the king's court, which required them to be educated in Babylonian language, literature, and culture, Daniel 1 verses 1-7. Faith and dedication. Even in his early years, Daniel demonstrated faith and dedication to God. When presented with the opportunity to eat the king's food and drink his wine, which have been associated with idolatrous practices, Daniel resolved not to defile himself. Instead, he requested a diet of vegetables and water, trusting that God would bless their obedience, Daniel 1 verses 8-16. Divine favor and wisdom. As a result of their faithfulness, God granted Daniel and his friends knowledge, understanding, and wisdom beyond their Babylonian counterparts. They excelled in their studies and were found to be 10 times better in wisdom and understanding than all the magicians and astrologers in the realm, Daniel 1 verses 17-20. Although Daniel's birth and early childhood details are not provided, the biblical account emphasizes his noble lineage, early education, faithfulness to God, and the divine favor of God that marked his life. These foundational aspects would set the stage for the remarkable events and prophetic visions that Daniel would experience later in his life during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar. Spiritual gifts of Daniel. The spiritual gifts bestowed upon Daniel by God played a vital role in Daniel's life and his ability to fulfill his purpose as a prophet and interpreter of dreams. Some aspects of Daniel's spiritual gifts from a theological perspective are: wisdom and discernment. Daniel possessed exceptional wisdom and discernment, which enabled him to understand complex matters and make sound judgments. This gift of wisdom came directly from God and was evident in his interpretations of dreams, prophecies, and his ability to navigate difficult situations with clarity and insight. Daniel's wisdom and understanding. Daniel 1 verse 17, Daniel's ability to solve difficult problems, Daniel 5 verses 14-16. Interpretation of dreams and visions. Daniel had a unique gift for interpreting dreams and visions. Throughout the book, we see him accurately interpreting dreams for kings and providing insightful explanations of symbolic visions. This gift allowed him to unveil hidden meanings and reveal divine messages to those seeking understanding. Daniel interpreting Nebuchadnezzar's dream, Daniel 2 verses 19-45, Daniel interpreting Belshazzar's writing on the wall, Daniel 5 verses 13-29, Daniel receiving visions and revelations, Daniel 7-12. Prophetic revelation. God bestowed upon Daniel the gift of prophetic revelation, enabling him to receive divine messages and visions concerning the future. He had a deep connection with God, receiving insights into the rise and fall of kingdoms, the coming of the Messiah, and the ultimate establishment of God's everlasting kingdom. Daniel's prophecies about future kingdoms, Daniel 2 verses 31 to 45, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Daniel 10 to 12, and Daniel's vision of the coming Messiah and his kingdom, Daniel 9 verses 24 to 27. Faith and trust in God. Daniel's unwavering faith and trust in God were foundational aspects of his spiritual gifting. He remained steadfast in his devotion, even in the face of adversity, persecution, and potential harm. His faith allowed him to endure trials, maintain his integrity, and bear witness to God's faithfulness throughout his life. Daniel's commitment to pray to God despite the decree, Daniel 6 verses 10 to 1, Daniel's faith in God's deliverance from the lion's den, Daniel 6 verse 22. Prayer and spiritual discernment. Daniel had a fervent prayer life and a strong sense of spiritual discernment. Daniel sought God's guidance and understanding through prayer, fasting, and meditation, and was receptive to God's voice and leading. His spiritual discernment enabled him to make righteous decisions and navigate complex situations with divine guidance. Daniel's practice of prayer and seeking God's guidance, Daniel 6 verse 10, Daniel 9 verses 3 to 19, Daniel's vision and encounter with the angel, Daniel 10 verses 1 to 21. Courage and boldness. Another spiritual gift evident in Daniel's life was courage and boldness. He fearlessly stood for his convictions, even in the face of persecution and potential harm. Daniel's courage allowed him to confront powerful rulers, challenge idolatrous practices, and remain steadfast in his commitment to God. Daniel's courage in confronting the king's command can be seen Daniel 1 verse 8. Daniel's boldness in interpreting dreams and delivering God's messages to kings are found in various references throughout the book of Daniel. Influence and leadership. Daniel's spiritual gifts also included the ability to influence and lead others. He was appointed to high positions in foreign kingdoms due to his integrity, wisdom, and faithful service. Through his leadership, he impacted the lives of those around him and served as a godly example in a foreign land. Daniel's appointment to high positions in foreign kingdoms, Daniel 2 verses 48 to 49, Daniel 5 verse 29. Life applications drawn from the book of Daniel. Uncompromising faith. Daniel and his companions displayed unwavering faith in God despite being in a foreign and idolatrous scenarios. We can learn from their example by standing firm in our faith, even when faced with challenges or pressures to compromise our beliefs. Trusting God's sovereignty. Daniel's life reminds us that God is in control of all circumstances and has a sovereign plan for you and I. We should trust in God's wisdom and providence, knowing that He can work through even the most difficult situations for His purposes. Wisdom and leadership. Daniel exemplifies wisdom and integrity in his positions of leadership, obtained through a prayer-filled life. We can apply this by seeking godly wisdom and making wise decisions in our roles as leaders, whether in our families, workplaces, or communities. Prayer and dependence on God. Daniel's commitment to prayer and seeking God's guidance is a powerful example for us today. We should cultivate a consistent prayer life, relying on God's wisdom, strength, and guidance in all aspects of our lives. Standing for justice. Daniel's courage in speaking truth to power encourages us to stand up for justice and righteousness in our own contexts. We should advocate for the vulnerable, challenge unjust systems, and work towards creating a more just society. Resilience in adversity. Daniel faced various trials and opposition, yet he remained resilient and faithful to God. We can learn from his perseverance and resilience, finding strength in our relationship with God during times of adversity and remaining steadfast in our faith. God's deliverance and protection. The experiences of Daniel and his friends highlight God's faithfulness in delivering and protecting his people. We can trust in God's faithfulness, knowing that He is with us in every circumstance and will provide for our needs. Hope in God's promises. The book of Daniel contains prophecies and visions that point to God's ultimate victory and the establishment of His everlasting kingdom. This gives us hope and reminds us to focus on the eternal promises of God, especially during challenging times. Cultural engagement with integrity. Daniel engaged with the Babylonian culture while maintaining his identity and faithfulness to God. We can learn to be culturally engaged in our society, making a positive impact while upholding our values and principles. Testimony of God's power. Daniel's life serves as a testimony to the power and faithfulness of God. Our lives should likewise be a testimony of God's transformative work, reflecting His character and bringing glory to His name. By applying these lessons from the book of Daniel to our lives today, we can grow in our faith, character, and impact in the world, aligning ourselves with God's purposes and experiencing His blessings.